7 men burned her home, laughed while they did it. They thought she was just a widow, just a woman alone. They were wrong. One shot, one man down, before they could even turn around. Her name was Sarah McKenna, and by sunrise, only 3 of them would still be breathing. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and comment where you're watching from right now. Let's see how far this story travels. But to understand how a quiet widow became the deadliest woman in New Mexico, we need to go back 24 hours earlier, before the fire, before the blood, when Red Canyon still held the illusion of peace. They say some silences are louder than gunshots. Out here, where the sky weighs heavy and the earth keeps its secrets, one woman proved that truth. The night the fire came, Sarah McKenna did not cry. She did not beg. She simply picked up a rifle that had once belonged to the Union Army, and the canyon itself held its breath. One shot, one echo that rolled like Judgment Day through every rock and ravine. And when the smoke cleared, the legend was already riding the wind. Her name was Sarah McKenna, and the West never forgot what she did next. The house stood burning against the black New Mexico night. Flames climbed the cedar walls in bright, hungry sheets, painting the canyon walls orange and gold. 7 riders circled the inferno, their laughter carrying on the wind like the cries of hunting wolves. They believed they had won, believed the widow inside had already fled or burned. They were wrong. Sarah McKenna stood in the mesquite thicket 50 yards north, silhouette dark against the firelight. The Springfield rifle rested across her forearms, barrel cool despite the heat rolling off her burning home. Her gray eyes, the color of slate rivers after rain, tracked each rider with the patience of a woman who had learned long ago that haste kills more men than bullets ever could. Behind her, 2 boys pressed low to the ground. Tom Brewer, 17, face pale as ash in the dancing light. Sam Fletcher, 16, clutching a pitchfork like it might save him from what was coming. Both of them shaking, both of them watching the woman who had just made a choice that would reshape their lives forever. But to understand that choice, you have to go back. 24 hours earlier, before the fire, before the blood, when Red Canyon still held the illusion of peace. The sun had been dying slow that previous evening, bleeding copper light across the scrub and turning the mesquite to black iron. Wind crept low through the ravines, carrying the sharp bite of sage and old metal rattling dry seed pods like dice in a dead man's palm. Sarah had stood on the sagging porch of her timber and stone house boots, planted wide on boards, worn smooth by years of pacing. The scar on her left cheek caught the last light, a thin white line pale against sunburned skin. She never spoke of where it came from. The boys had learned not to ask. Her hand rested near the Springfield carbine propped against the rail. The rifle was older than she was, its blued steel darkened by decades of oil and honest use. Army issue once, never missed in her hands. Tom had asked her about that once, how she could shoot so straight. She had smiled sad and distant and said only that her father had taught her to let her heart match the earth's rhythm. Tom was working the fence line that day, driving stakes into hard ground while sweat darkened his shirt. Sam carried water from the well, young muscles straining with one bucket's weight. Simple work, honest work, the kind that keeps a small ranch alive when cattle prices drop and the winter comes hard. Sarah watched them with something like pride warming her chest. These boys, orphaned and adrift when she found them hungry and hollow-eyed at her door 2 years back. She had fed them, taught them, given them purpose when the world had given them nothing but loss. They were not her sons, could never be. But they were hers to protect all the same. Tom dropped his hammer, wiping his brow. His voice carried across the yard, young and uncertain. "Miss McKenna, you ever worry about what comes next?" Sarah turned her face toward the horizon, where dust devils twisted like smoke against the darkening sky. "Every day, Tom. Every single day. What do you do about it? I prepare. And I remember that worry is just fear with nowhere to go." She had not told him the whole truth. Could not. How do you explain to a boy that some nights you wake reaching for a rifle that is always there, always loaded because the past has teeth and it never stops biting? How do you tell him that the widow he sees quiet and capable is just a shell built around a soldier who never really came home from the war? 4 years in Union Blue, carrying dispatches through hostile territory, reading enemy movements in broken grass and disturbed earth. 234 missions. She had counted once in a moment of weakness, adding them up like debts owed to the dead. Colonel Nathan Garrison had called her the best damn scout he ever commanded, said she moved like smoke and shot like God's own fury. She had been 19 when she enlisted, 33 when she finally stopped. 4 years of her life given to a cause that ended in a country that forgot. Daniel McKenna had been her reason for stopping. Daniel, with his easy laugh and gentle hands, who had looked at her medals and her scars and said he did not care what she had been, only what she wanted to become. They had married under a cottonwood tree with only the wind and the canyon as witnesses. 5 years of peace followed. 5 years of pretending the past was truly past. Then the telegram came. Terse. Final. Destroying everything with 13 words. Daniel McKenna killed in border raid. Remains unrecovered. Deepest condolences. She had not cried. Had simply ridden out into the desert alone, that piece of paper crushed in her fist in the spring field across her saddle. Somewhere in the empty silence, she had buried the last soft piece of herself. The part that believed the world could be kind. The part that thought a small life could be enough. Now, 2 years later, she stood on this same porch and felt the past crawling back. Tom called out again, pulling her from the dark water of memory. "Miss McKenna, there is dust on the South Trail." Sarah's posture changed, subtle, a straightening of the spine, a shift of weight to the balls of her feet. Her hand drifted closer to the rifle without conscious thought. How many? Hard to say. More than 3. Less than 10. She counted the rhythm between hoofbeats the way she once had when scouting patrols through hostile country. 7. Maybe 8. Enough to trouble a place like this. Enough to kill. Tom and Sam saddled the horses. Quiet now. No sudden moves. The boys obeyed, eyes wide but hands steady. They had learned to trust her instincts even when they did not understand them, especially then. Sarah stepped inside the house and closed the door without sound. The room smelled of pine pitch and gun oil. She moved with the quiet economy of someone who had long ago learned that noise draws bullets. Her fingers found the familiar curve of the Springfield stock. She checked the chamber. Smooth. Automatic. A ritual older than grief. Through the window, she watched the dust plume thicken, splitting into separate strands where moonlight touched it. Shadows moved inside the cloud, men on horseback, riding loose, careless, certain. Bandits or bounty hunters, it made no difference. She had seen their kind before. Men who believed the frontier existed to be taken, that a woman alone meant easy pickings. She had buried men like them in places where only the buzzards kept count. The riders drew closer. Close enough now that she could hear the jingle of spur rowels, the creak of leather, the soft snort of horses catching the scent of smoke from her chimney. They would see the lamplight, know someone was home. Sarah turned from the window and walked to the loose floorboard near the cold fireplace. She knelt, pried it up with the blade of her knife. The space beneath held things she had not touched in 2 years, things she had hoped never to touch again. A tin badge, dull with age but still legible in the lamplight. U.S. Army Scout. Colonel Garrison had pinned it on her chest after the Battle of Glorieta Pass when she had held a ridge alone for 3 hours while wounded men evacuated behind her. She had been 22, covered in other people's blood, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Beneath the badge, wrapped in oilcloth, lay 3 medals she had never displayed. 2 for marksmanship, 1 for valor under fire, and a letter, edges soft from too many readings from Daniel, written the week before he died. She had not been able to open it, could not bear to read his last words, knowing she would never hear his voice speak them. She took the badge, left the letter. Tom appeared in the doorway, breathing hard. "Miss McKenna, they are almost here. What do we do?" Sarah stood, badge in one hand, rifle in the other. For a moment, she was not the widow these boys knew. She was Scout McKenna, hardened and lethal, a woman who had walked through fire and learned to love the burning. Tom saw the change, saw something in her eyes that made him step back uncertain. "Miss McKenna." She pinned the badge to the inside of her collar, hidden beneath fabric. Then she met his gaze. "You want to learn how to survive, Tom. First lesson. Sometimes good people have to do terrible things." Outside, the hoofbeats stopped. A voice rang out across the yard, deep and smooth, the kind that could sell salvation or damnation, with the same smile. "Evening, Widow McKenna. Fine night for a conversation, do not you think?" Sarah walked to the door, opened it slowly. 7 men sat their horses in a loose semicircle around her porch. The one in front wore a long coat stitched with raven feathers that caught the moonlight and shimmered like oil on water. His face was lean and sharp, carved from hard years and harder choices. Marcus Holloway. She knew him, or rather, knew of him. Daniel had mentioned the name once, voice tight with old anger and older guilt. A man from the war. A man who had saved Daniel's life and then somehow become his enemy. Marcus smiled. It did not reach his eyes. You have something that belongs to me, widow. Something your husband took before he died. I want it back. Sarah's voice came flat, empty of everything but cold arithmetic. I do not know what you are talking about. The gold widow. The payroll Daniel stole from the Rio Grande camp. 50,000 in Union gold buried somewhere on this land. There is no gold. My husband died in a border raid trying to help wounded soldiers. He was a good man. Marcus's smile cracked, showing teeth. Your husband was a thief. He betrayed me, betrayed everyone, and I will burn this place to ash before I leave empty-handed. Sarah felt Tom and Sam behind her, tense and terrified, felt the weight of the rifle in her hand and the badge against her skin, felt the canyon watching, waiting to see what choice she would make. She could give them the truth, that there was no gold, never had been, that whatever Marcus believed, it was built on lies or madness, or both. But she knew men like this, knew that truth was not currency they accepted. They had ridden here for violence, for destruction. Truth would not turn them aside any more than prayers would stop a wildfire. Marcus raised his hand. One of his men lifted a torch, flames dancing bright against the dark. Last chance, widow. Sarah's answer was to step back inside and close the door. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then Marcus's voice again, farther now, retreating to safe distance. Light it up, boys. The first torch arced through the night, trailing sparks like dying fireflies. It struck the hay barn with a muffled thud. Dry straw caught with a soft whoosh. Flames bloomed orange and hungry, climbing the weathered boards in seconds. Tom grabbed Sarah's arm, eyes wild. We have to run, Miss McKenna. We have to go. Sarah did not move, did not flinch. She watched the fire spread from barn to corral fence, watched it race along the cedar rails like a living thing with purpose and appetite. Watched her world burn, and made her choice, get to the back room. There was a loose floorboard under the rug. Lift it. The boys obeyed, stumbling over themselves in their haste. Sarah followed, moving with deliberate calm, even as heat began to press against the walls. She knelt beside them, reached into the hidden space, and pulled out items wrapped in canvas. A duster coat weathered to the color of canyon dust. The old army revolver, cold steel, cleaned and oiled. A small leather pouch that clinked softly when she lifted it. And a journal, leather-bound, Daniel's handwriting on the cover. She opened the journal to a marked page, read 3 lines, and understood everything. Understood why Daniel had died, why Marcus had come, why there was no gold and never had been. Her hands did not shake as she closed the book, did not shake as she shrugged out of her simple coat and pulled on the duster, did not shake as she checked the revolver's cylinder, 5 rounds waiting in patient silence. Tom stared at the transformation. At this woman who was suddenly not the widow who had fed him and taught him to mend fences. This was someone else, someone harder, colder, lethal. Miss McKenna, what is happening? Sarah buckled the gun belt low on her hip, picked up the Springfield, met his eyes, war Tom. War is what happens when good men die and bad men come collecting. Another torch crashed through the side window, glass shattered, flames licked up the curtains, spreading fast toward the dry timber walls. The house-grown timbers creaking under the sudden heat. We are leaving. Now. Follow me and stay low. Sarah led them out the back door as the front room caught fire. The night air hit her face, cool after the building heat, carrying the acrid bite of smoke and the distant laughter of Marcus's men. They thought her trapped, thought her burning or fled. They had no idea what was coming. She moved through the mesquite thicket with Tom and Sam stumbling behind branches, tearing at their clothes and faces. Moved up the canyon trail by feel more than sight boots, finding purchase on stone she had walked 1,000 times. The moon was thin, barely a slaver, hiding behind high clouds. Good. Darkness was her ally now. They climbed to a narrow ledge overlooking the basin. Below, the ranch burned bright. The barn fully engulfed now, roof collapsing in a spray of sparks that lifted high on the updraft. The house following, flames pouring from windows like liquid gold. The corral fence a line of fire stretching toward the cattle pen, where frightened animals bawled and surged against the rails. Marcus's men had dismounted, passing bottles and laughing, celebrating, 7 shapes around the dying light of her life. Sarah set the Springfield on a flat stone barrel, resting easy. She knelt beside it, checking the sight line. 300 yards. Slight downhill angle. Wind from the west, maybe 5 miles per hour. She adjusted her estimate, factored in the heat shimmer rising from the fires. Tom crouched beside her, voice barely a whisper. "What are you doing?" "Teaching you how the world really works." She reached into her pocket, pulled out the old Colt revolver. 5 shots. She pressed it into Tom's trembling hands. "You know how to use this. You taught me, ma'am. Bottles and cans. This is not bottles and cans, Tom. If they come up this trail, if they get past me, you do not hesitate. You aim for center mass, and you pull the trigger. Understand?" Tom's face was white in the darkness, but he nodded. "Good boy. Now listen. You see that goat path, the one that winds north toward Miller's Crossing?" "Yes, ma'am." "If things go bad, you and Sam run. You run hard, and you do not look back. You get to Sheriff Donnelly, and you tell him everything. You tell him Sarah McKenna stood her ground." "Can you do that?" Sam spoke up, voice cracking. "We ain't leaving you, Miss McKenna." Sarah turned to look at both of them. These boys, these children who had already lost too much and were about to lose more one way or another. "Then I better make sure you do not have to." She turned back to the basin, settled herself, let her breathing slow deep pulls that filled her lungs, and then released, counting the rhythm. Her father had taught her this long ago, before the war, when she was just a girl learning to hunt deer in the tall grass. Do not breathe, Sarah. Do not think. Let your heart slow until it matches the earth. She had listened, had killed clean that day, and she had kept listening all the way through the war, all the way through 234 missions, through ridge fights and river crossings and dark nights, when the only thing keeping her alive was the ability to become stone, become stillness, become death itself when death was required. Below, one of Marcus's men walked toward the wagon, bottle in hand. He was laughing at something another man said. Laughing like the world was simple and violence had no cost. Sarah sighted him, adjusted for distance, for wind, for the slight tremble in her own hands that she forced into submission through sheer will. Tom whispered beside her, "Miss McKenna, are you really going to—" "Quiet now, Tom. Watch, learn, remember." She exhaled half a breath, held it, let her heart find that old rhythm, the one that matched the earth's slow turning. Let everything fall away except the shot, the distance, the mathematics of death, and squeezed. The rifle bucked against her shoulder. The shot cracked like the sky splitting open, sharp and final. The sound rolled across the canyon, echoing off every wall until it felt like a dozen rifles speaking at once. The sound of judgment pronounced from on high. The man by the wagon jerked once. The bottle slipped from his fingers, shattering on the hardpan before he hit the ground. For one heartbeat, nothing moved. Then chaos. Men dove for cover, shouting, scrambling. Bottles spilled, horses reared against their tethers. Rifles came up barrels, sweeping the darkness. They fired blindly into the cliffs, muzzle flashes bright and desperate. Bullets cracked against stone, sparks flying where lead met rock. Sarah had already moved, rolled left behind a boulder, smooth and fast, disappearing from her firing position before they could mark it. She crawled 20 feet to a second spot, a narrow cleft in the rock that gave her a new angle. Settled the Springfield again. Below, Marcus was shouting orders. "Find her. She is up there somewhere, spread out." One man stood up behind a charred beam, rifle raised, peering into the darkness. Sarah adjusted her aim, exhaled, fired. The beam shattered. The man did not get back up. She moved again, low, silent, rolling to a third position before they could react. Tom and Sam watched her jaws slack, realizing they were witnessing something beyond their understanding. This was not the woman who had taught them to plant corn in men's saddles. This was a weapon honed by years of war, moving with terrible precision through the dark. A third man broke from cover, sprinting toward the horses, panic overriding sense. Sarah tracked him, led him by 3 feet to account for his speed in the bullet's arc. Fired. He dropped mid-stride, arms windmilling, then hitting the dirt in a loose sprawl. 3 down, 4 to go. Marcus's voice rose again, raw and cracking. She is a ghost. She is not human. One of his men, the one with the scar twisting across his cheek, shouted back, "We should go, boss. This ain't worth it." Marcus fired blindly into the rocks. Once, twice, three times, bullets whined and ricocheted, one striking close enough to shower grit across Sarah's back. She pressed tighter to the stone-tasting dust and old fear. Her heart hammered now, the rhythm-broken adrenaline flooding her system. The old terror was there, coiled in her gut. The fear of missing, of being seen, of becoming another name carved on a headstone no one would visit. But the training held, the muscle memory built over 14 years of war. She breathed through it, let it sharpen her instead of breaking her. Somewhere down the slope, rawhide sang taut, a sharp clatter of shale, a muffled curse. Then the low rumble of rocks sliding, gathering speed in mass, a scream short and choked cut off as the slide buried him. Dust billowed up, thick and choking. Sarah had set that trap hours ago, stringing tripwire across the goat path in the fading light, while Tom and Sam watched and learned. A simple thing, old as warfare itself, but effective. 4 down now, 3 to go. Tom's voice came soft beside her, shaking. "Miss McKenna, I thought I could do this, but when that bullet came close, I near wet myself." Sarah did not take her eyes from the basin, did not turn her head, but her voice when it came was gentler than the rifle in her hands. "Good. Ma'am means you are smart, Tom. Men who are not scared, they die first. Fear keeps you sharp, keeps you alive. You just have to let it work for you, not against you. How many men have you killed?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy as smoke, enough that I stopped counting, and enough that I know each one was somebody's son, somebody's husband or brother or father. That weight does not go away, Tom. For you carry it or it buries you. Below, Marcus's remaining men had stopped firing. The night filled with tense silence, broken only by the crackle of dying flames and the nervous stamp of horses. Sarah could feel them regrouping, recalculating, fear turning to desperate rage. She checked her ammunition. 18 rounds left for the Springfield, 5 for the revolver, against 3 men who now knew she was no helpless widow. 3 men who had nothing to lose. The odds were better than they had been, but still not good. Sam whispered from her other side, "What do we do now?" "We wait. Let them make the next mistake. What if they rush us all at once? Then you and Tom run like I told you, and I make them pay for every foot of ground. But Miss McKenna, listen to me, both of you. Whatever happens here tonight, you remember this. You remember that sometimes the world gives you nothing but hard choices. Run or fight, hide or stand. And you have to choose, knowing that either way something gets lost. But what matters, what really matters, is that you choose true to who you are. Not who you think you should be, not who others want you to be, but who you are deep down when all the pretending stops." Tom's voice came smaller now, younger. "Who are you, Miss McKenna?" Really, Sarah thought about that. About the girl who learned to hunt from her father. About the soldier who killed for a cause she believed in. About the wife who buried that soldier and tried to build something gentle in the ruins. About the widow kneeling in darkness, rifle ready, 3 men in her sights and blood already on her hands. I am someone who made a promise. To Daniel, to myself, that I would not run anymore. That I would stand for something worth standing for, even if it cost me everything. That is who I am, Tom, for better or worse. The moon slipped from behind the clouds, spilling silver light across the basin. In that pale glow, Sarah could see Marcus clearly now. He stood by the burned-out wagon raven feather coat, stirring in the night wind. He was staring up at the cliffs, searching. And for just a moment, their eyes met across the distance. He knew. Somehow he knew exactly where she was. Marcus raised his hand, made a gesture. His 3 remaining men began to move, spreading out, beginning the climb up different trails, surrounding her position. Smart, tactical. The kind of maneuver that only worked if you did not care about casualties. Sarah's jaw tightened. She could take 1, maybe 2 before they reached her. But the 3rd would get through, and then it would be close quarters fighting where numbers mattered more than skill. She glanced at Tom and Sam, both of them gripping weapons with white-knuckled hands, both of them terrified but holding their ground. These boys, these children who trusted her, who looked at her and saw someone worth following into the dark. She could not let them die here. Would not. Sarah made her decision, stood slowly stepping out from behind the boulder. Moonlight caught her duster, the tin badge glinting once beneath the collar. She raised the Springfield, holding it across her chest, and called down into the basin. Her voice carried clear and hard. "Marcus Holloway, you want me? Here I am. Let the boys go. This is between us." Marcus stopped, turned fully toward her. Even at this distance, she could see his smile. "You think you get to make deals, widow? You killed 4 of my men. You burned my home. Seems we are even on that count." "There is no even. Not until I have what Daniel stole." Sarah reached into her coat, pulled out the journal, held it high where he could see. This is what you want, Daniel's journal, the one that says there never was any gold, the one that has evidence instead. Even across 300 yards, she saw Marcus stiffen. Evidence of what exactly? Of a massacre at Rio Grande, of 47 civilians killed on your orders, of a payroll you claimed was stolen to cover up war crimes. Evidence that Daniel was going to take to the army, until you had him killed. The night went silent. Wind itself seemed to stop. Marcus's voice came back quieter now, but carrying. "You do not know what you are talking about." "Oh, but I do, Marcus. I know exactly what I am talking about. Daniel wrote it all down. Names, dates, locations. He was going to testify, and you could not let that happen. So you murdered him. Not for gold, for silence." "That is a lie." "Then come up here and prove it. Face me. Let the truth decide who walks away." Another long silence. Sarah could feel Tom and Sam behind her tense and waiting, could feel her own heart hammering against her ribs. This was the gamble, the moment that would either end this or escalate it beyond any hope of control. Marcus finally answered, "All right, widow, you want truth? Let me tell you about truth, about what really happened at Rio Grande, about the orders I followed and the men I tried to save. You want to judge me? Fine, but you will hear all of it first." Sarah lowered the rifle slightly, not surrendering, just listening. "I am waiting." And Marcus began to speak, began to tell a story that Sarah had only glimpsed in Daniel's journal. A story of war and orders and impossible choices. A story that, if it was true, changed everything. But that story and what came after would have to wait. Because dawn was breaking over the eastern rim, now spilling gold across the canyon. And with the light came a new sound. Hoofbeats, multiple horses, coming from the north. Sheriff Donnelly and a posse drawn by the smoke that had painted the sky all night. The game was about to change again. Sarah glanced at Tom and Sam one last time. Saw them watching her with something like awe, something like fear, something that looked almost like the way sons look at fathers who have shown them the world is harder and stranger than they ever imagined. She thought about what she had told them, about choosing true to who you are, about standing for something worth standing for. And she thought about Daniel, about the man who had chosen truth over life, about the husband she had loved and lost and was now avenging in ways he never would have wanted. Was this standing for something, or was this just revenge dressed up in righteousness? The question burned in her chest as the sun climbed higher. As Marcus's men froze, caught between her on the ridge and the law riding in from the valley. As the moment crystallized into something sharp and final. Sarah McKenna had started this night as a widow seeking only to survive. She would end it as something else entirely, something the West would remember, something her students would carry forward. But first she had to live through what came next. The dawn light touched her face. The rifle felt heavy in her hands. The badge pressed cold against her skin. And somewhere in the distance, Sheriff Donnelly called out, his voice rolling across the basin like thunder before a storm. "Everyone hold where you are. In the name of the law." Sarah did not move, did not lower her weapon. Just stood there on the ridge, silhouetted against the rising sun, waiting to see which way the wind would blow. This was the moment, the pivot point, the place where everything that came before met everything that would follow. And in that frozen heartbeat, Sarah McKenna understood something fundamental about herself, about the choice she had made when she pinned on that badge and picked up that rifle. She was not fighting for revenge. Not really. She was fighting for the belief that truth mattered, that justice was worth the cost, that one person standing alone in the dark could still make a difference, even if that difference was written in blood and ash, even if the price was everything she had left to lose. The sun climbed, the standoff held, and the canyon waited patient as stone to see how this story would end. Sheriff Donnelly sat his horse at the edge of the burned-out yard, eyes moving across the scene with the slow deliberation of a man who had seen violence before and knew its arithmetic. 5 bodies cooling in the dust, a widow standing on the ridge with a rifle, 2 boys with weapons they barely knew how to hold, and Marcus Holloway, hands raised but eyes still burning with something that looked like righteousness wrapped in madness. The sheriff was 55, weathered by sun, and hard choices, gray threading through his beard like wisdom earned at cost. He had known Sarah McKenna for 2 years, known her as the quiet widow who kept to herself, who paid her debts and asked nothing from anyone. He had not known her as this, as Scout McKenna standing calm as stone with blood on her hands and no apology in her eyes. He dismounted slowly. His deputies followed 5 men spreading out in a loose perimeter, rifles ready but not quite aimed. The morning light painted everything gold and harsh, making the corpses look like discarded dolls, and the burned ranch like the ruins of some failed dream. Donnelly's voice carried across the basin, measured and careful. "Miss McKenna, I am going to need you to lower that rifle." Sarah did not move, did not blink. Her gray eyes stayed fixed on Marcus. "Cannot do that just yet, Sheriff. Not until we have an understanding. An understanding about what exactly, about who started this, and what it is going to take to finish it." Marcus found his voice then loud and indignant. "Sheriff, this woman murdered 4 of my men in cold blood. She is a killer. Arrest her." Donnelly turned his gaze to Marcus. Let the silence stretch just long enough to make the other man uncomfortable. "Mr. Holloway, I count 5 dead men in this yard. I count 1 burned ranch. And I count you standing here with a torch in your saddlebag and not a scratch on you. So before I go arresting anyone, I think I will hear all the stories, starting with why you rode onto this woman's land in the middle of the night." Marcus's jaw worked, his hand still raised trembled slightly. "She has something that belongs to me, something her husband stole. And what would that be? Gold. 50,000 in union payroll, buried here somewhere." Sarah's voice cut through sharp as broken glass. "There is no gold, Sheriff. There never was. What there is evidence, evidence of a massacre at Rio Grande, of 47 civilians killed on General Thomas Holloway's orders carried out by Marcus, of a payroll he claimed was stolen to cover up those crimes. Evidence that my husband died trying to bring to light." The words landed like stones in still water ripples spreading. Donnelly's face changed, hardened. "That is a serious accusation, Miss McKenna. It is a true one, I have proof. Daniel's journal, photographs, signed orders. She is lying. There is no proof." "Then why did you burn my house, Marcus? Why did you kill my husband? If there is nothing to hide, why did you come here with 7 men and torches?" Marcus lunged forward. 2 of Donnelly's deputies caught him, held him back. He struggled, face twisting with rage and something that looked almost like pain. "Because Daniel betrayed me. He was my brother. We saved each other's lives, and he was going to destroy me for following orders where I did not want to follow but had no choice." The confession hung in the air. Donnelly looked at Marcus, then at Sarah, calculating. "Miss McKenna, do you have this evidence?" Sarah reached slowly into her coat, pulled out the leather-bound journal, held it where Donnelly could see. "Right here, Sheriff. Everything Daniel documented. Everything Marcus tried to bury with my husband's body. I will need to see that after. First, Marcus answers for burning my home and attempting murder." One of Marcus's men, the one with the scarred face, spoke up then. His voice was rough, uncertain. "Sheriff, my name is Wade Carson. I rode with Mr. Holloway tonight, and I want to say for the record that Miss McKenna is telling the truth. We attacked first. She defended herself. Everything that happened here, it is on us." Marcus whirled on him. "Wade, you son of a—" Wade met his eyes without flinching. "I got kids, Marcus. 2 boys back home, and I will not let them grow up thinking their father was a murderer. I made mistakes tonight, bad ones, but I am owning them now." Donnelly nodded slowly, respect in his eyes. "That takes courage, Mr. Carson. I appreciate your honesty." Another voice called out from behind a pile of rubble. "Weak, pained, help. Someone please help me." Sarah's posture changed. The rifle, which had been trained on Marcus, swung toward the sound, then lowered. That is Cole, one of Marcus's men. He is wounded. How bad? Bad enough. Stake through the leg. Probably infected by now. You're the one who set that trap, I did. And now you want to help him. Sarah looked at Donnelly. Something passed between them. An understanding that transcended words. Sheriff, I killed men tonight. I will carry that weight until I die. But I will not let a wounded man bleed out because of pride or anger. That is not who I am. Tom stepped forward, then young face set with determination. Sheriff Donnelly, sir. Miss McKenna was teaching us. Teaching Sam and me how to survive. How to be men. She did not want to kill anyone. But they gave her no choice. Sam nodded, adding his voice. It is true, sir. They burned everything. Laughed while they did it. Miss McKenna, she tried to talk them down first. They would not listen. Donnelly looked at the two boys, saw the truth in their faces. Then he looked back at Sarah, standing tall on the ridge duster coat stirring in the morning breeze, badge glinting beneath her collar. Scout McKenna. That is what the badge says, is it not? Sarah inclined her head. It is. You served in the war 4 years, 234 missions, discharged honorably in 74. And your husband, Daniel McKenna, he served too. He did. Cavalry, good man, honest man. The kind who could not stomach lies even when telling the truth cost him everything. Donnelly was quiet for a long moment. Then he made his decision. Mr. Holloway, you and your men are under arrest for arson and attempted murder. Mr. Carson, I appreciate your cooperation. You will be charged as well, but your testimony will be noted. Miss McKenna, I will need you to come down from that ridge. We have a lot to discuss. Sarah lowered the rifle fully now, slung it across her back, started down the slope with Tom and Sam following. The walk felt longer than it was. Every step took her from the woman she had been, the soldier in the dark, back towards something more human, something that could face consequences and accept judgment. When she reached the basin, Donnelly extended his hand. She took it. His grip was firm, calloused, honest. Hell of a night, Miss McKenna. Yes, sir. It was. You hurt, grazed. Nothing serious. Good. Because we have got a problem. A big one. What kind of problem? Donnelly glanced at Marcus, then back to Sarah, lowered his voice. 3 months ago, a body was found near the border. Unmarked grave. Been there about 2 years. Dental records identified him as Daniel McKenna. Sarah's breath caught. The world tilted. Daniel. They found Daniel. Yes, ma'am. And there is more. Federal marshals have been investigating. There were papers with the body. Correspondence. Lists. They have been building a case against someone high up in the military, someone who has been covering up war crimes for years. Sarah felt Tom's hand on her shoulder, steadying her. She looked at Donnelly, vision blurring with tears she had not shed in 2 years. So Daniel, he really was going to testify. It was not just plans. He was doing it. He was. And someone killed him for it. Shot in the back. Execution style. Marcus. Maybe. Or maybe someone else. Someone who had more to lose. Donnelly reached into his saddlebag, pulled out a folder, opened it to show Sarah photographs, crime scene images, Daniel's grave, and something else. Letters, addressed to Colonel Nathan Garrison. Never sent. Your husband was careful, Miss McKenna. He kept copies, hid evidence in multiple places. Smart man. He was. The marshals are 2 days out. They need this journal you have. And they need Marcus Holloway alive to testify. He will be alive, Sheriff. I made my choice on that ridge. Could have killed him. Did not. Because Daniel would not have wanted that. He wanted justice, not revenge. Then you are a better person than most, ma'am. No, just someone who learned the difference the hard way. They moved toward Cole's position together. The wounded man lay behind a jumble of stones, face gray with pain and fever. The stake had gone through his calf infection already setting in around the wound. His eyes, when he looked up at Sarah, were wide with fear. You going to kill me now? Lady, Sarah knelt beside him, set down the rifle, pulled a knife from her boot. Cole flinched. Hold still. This is going to hurt like hell, but if I do not clean it, you will die. Why do you care? Because killing you would be easy. Saving you is hard, and I have had enough of easy choices. She cut away his pant leg. The wound was ugly, swollen, seeping. She called to Tom. Tom, I need clean water and whiskey if anyone has it. Tom ran to fetch supplies. Sarah worked with efficient hands cleaning the wound, extracting splinters of wood the stake had driven deep. Cole screamed, bit down on a leather strap Wade offered. But he held still. Let her work. Sam watched learning. Sarah talked as she cleaned, teaching, even now. Infection kills more soldiers than bullets, Sam. You remember that. Field medicine is just as important as marksmanship. Maybe more. How did you learn all this army training? Every scout learned basic medicine. Had to. You go out alone into hostile territory, you better know how to patch yourself up. Or your partner. When she finished, Cole's leg was bandaged tight, wound, treated as best she could manage. He would live. Probably even keep the leg if he was lucky and got to a real doctor soon. Cole looked up at her, tears tracking through the dirt on his face. I am sorry. I am so sorry. My ma told me not to go with Marcus. Told me it was wrong. But I needed money and I thought just this once, just this one job. And now you live with it. We all do. The question is what you do next. You let this night define you or you use it to become better. I do not know how. Start by telling the truth. To the sheriff. To the marshals when they come. To yourself. Truth is where healing begins. Wade Carson had been standing nearby listening. He stepped forward now. She is right, Cole. I already told the sheriff everything. Feels like lifting a weight I did not know I was carrying. Marcus, still held by deputies, spat on the ground. Traitors. Both of you? No, Marcus. We are the ones who finally stopped betraying ourselves. Donnelly organized the prisoners, binding hands, preparing to move out. But before they could leave, another sound drifted across the canyon. Hoofbeats, multiple horses, coming fast from the south. Everyone froze. Sarah felt it first. The wrongness, the danger. She grabbed the Springfield, brought it up. Sheriff, those are military horses. Listen to the cadence. Donnelly cocked his head. His face darkened. Damn it, I was afraid of this. Afraid of what Captain Raymond Holloway, Marcus's younger brother, commands a garrison at Fort Stanton. 20 men. If he heard about this, then he is coming to silence witnesses and destroy evidence. Exactly. Marcus laughed then. Wild, unhinged. You think you won, widow. You think the law will save you. My brother controls this territory. He will burn you all to ash before he lets our family name be destroyed. Sarah met Donnelly's eyes, saw the calculation there. The odds. Sheriff, how many men do you have? 5, maybe 6 if we count you, against 20 trained soldiers. We cannot win a straight fight. No, ma'am, we cannot. Then we do not fight straight. The next 30 minutes were controlled chaos. Donnelly and Sarah working together, forming a plan built on desperation and hope in equal measure. The evidence had to reach the federal marshals. Everything else was secondary. They would split into 2 groups. Donnelly with 3 deputies would take Marcus and ride the main trail north, visible, obvious, drawing attention. The decoy. Sarah, Tom, Sam, and 2 deputies would take the evidence through Dark Canyon, an old mining trail most people did not know existed. Faster, hidden, dangerous in its own right, but their best chance. Wade spoke up as they prepared. I know that trail. Rode it once years back. I can guide you. Sarah studied him. This man who had come to burn her home and now offered to save her life. Why? Because maybe, just maybe, I can still be the man my boys deserve. The man my wife married before I lost my way. Sarah nodded. Acceptance. Then let us go find out. They mounted quickly. Sarah on her bay mare, Tom and Sam on ranch horses, the 2 deputies on their own mounts. Wade on Marcus's spare horse, hands bound, but given enough slack to ride. Donnelly handed Sarah the folder with Daniel's evidence, along with the journal she already carried. You get that to the marshals, Miss McKenna, no matter what. I will. And Miss McKenna, what you did here tonight, defending your home, your boys, that is not murder. That is survival. You remember that when the guilt comes knocking. Thank you, Sheriff. They rode out as the sun climbed higher as Captain Holloway's men appeared on the southern ridge like a dark stain spreading. 20 riders, moving with military precision. Sarah counted them, calculated, and knew that if they caught her group in open ground, it would be massacre. But Dark Canyon was not open ground. It was narrow, twisting, a place where terrain mattered more than numbers. They rode hard, horses straining hooves striking stone, sending echoes bouncing through the ravines. Tom and Sam rode well better than Sarah had realized, back straight and hands sure on the reins. These boys she had taught, these students who were becoming something more. Wade guided them, true calling out turns before they reached them, warning of loose shale and narrow ledges. He knew this country, knew its secrets, and he was spending that knowledge now, burning the last of what Marcus had given him to buy something cleaner. Behind them, far back but gaining, came the sound of pursuit. Captain Holloway had split his force, half following Donnelly, half tracking Sarah's group. Smart, thorough, exactly what she would have done in his position. The trail narrowed, became barely more than a goat path clinging to the canyon wall. 100-foot drops to the left, sheer stone to the right. The horses' balks spooked by the exposure and the thin air and the smell of fear on their riders. Sarah dismounted, led her mare by hand. The others followed her example. Walking now, slower, but safer. Tom spoke, voice tight. "Miss McKenna, they are gaining, I know. What do we do?" "We survive, Tom, one step at a time. That is all anyone can do." They rounded a bend, found themselves in a small clearing where three trails met. An old mine entrance gaped dark to their right. Tailings spilled down the slope like frozen rivers of stone. Wade pointed ahead. "That trail leads out toward Miller's Crossing. 2 more miles, but it is exposed. They will see us." Sarah looked back the way they had come, looked at the mine. An idea forming. How stable is that mine? Wade blinked. "What? The mine, is it stable or is it ready to collapse? Been abandoned 20 years. Probably unstable as hell." "Good." Sarah turned to the two deputies' men whose names she had not even learned. "You two, take the evidence. Ride hard for Miller's Crossing. Get it to Marshal Stone if he is there. If not, you guard it with your lives until he arrives." One of the deputies, young and nervous, shook his head. "We cannot leave you, ma'am. You can and you will. This evidence is worth more than any of our lives. It is justice for 47 murdered civilians. For my husband, for everyone Marcus and his brother silenced. You will deliver it." The deputies looked at each other, nodded, took the folder and journal, mounted and rode hard and fast, disappearing down the trail towards safety. Sarah turned to Tom, Sam, and Wade. "Now we buy them time. How we collapse the mine, create a rock slide, block the trail." Tom's eyes widened. "That is crazy, Miss McKenna." "Probably, but so is everything else we have done tonight. Come on." They worked together, finding weak points in the mine entrance, using the rifle stocks to pry loose supporting timbers. Ancient wood dry as bone, cracking under pressure. Sarah showed them where to strike, how to create leverage, teaching even now, even here, even when death was riding toward them at a gallop. The sound of hoofbeats grew louder, closer. They were out of time. Sarah called out, "Everyone back, get behind that outcrop." They ran, dove behind the stone. Sarah raised the Springfield, sighted on the last timber holding the mine roof, exhaled, fired. The shot cracked, the timber exploded. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then a groan, deep, primal. The mountain objecting. The mine entrance collapsed, stone and timber and earth sliding, tumbling, building into an avalanche that roared down across the trail like God's own fist slamming shut. Dust billowed. The world shook. When it cleared, the trail was gone, buried under tons of rock. Impassable. Behind that barrier, they could hear Captain Holloway and his men arriving, cursing, shouting, trapped on the wrong side. Tom let out a whoop. "We did it. We actually did it." Sarah smiled, tired, relieved. "We bought time. That is all. Now we ride." They mounted, rode hard, and for the first time in hours, Sarah let herself believe they might actually survive this. The trail opened up as they descended, dark canyon giving way to scrubland, and then to the flatter approaches to Miller's Crossing. They could see the town in the distance now, small, humble, but safe. They were going to make it. Then Sarah's horse stumbled, screamed, went down hard. Sarah barely kicked free of the stirrups, rolling, hitting ground with force that drove the air from her lungs. Gunshot, echoing. Captain Holloway appeared from behind a jumble of boulders. He had circled around, taken a different trail, cut them off. He stood now, revolver in hand, barrel still smoking. His face was hard, military, but something else moved behind his eyes, something that looked like regret wearing the mask of duty. Sarah lay on her back, dazed, tasting blood. Tom and Sam were off their horses 50 yards away, too far for a clean shot with the revolvers Sarah had given them. Holloway approached slowly, each step measured. Professional. Scout McKenna. I wish it had not come to this. Sarah coughed, tasted copper. Then it does not have to, Captain. Yes, it does. You have evidence that will destroy my family. 3 generations of Holloways. My father ordered that massacre. But if the truth comes out, it destroys my son, my grandson. They will carry that shame forever. Then teach them better. Teach them to choose truth over legacy. You do not understand. Some stains do not wash out. Some sins are inherited whether we want them or not. Sarah pulled herself to sitting, slowly. Every movement cost. I understand more than you think, Captain. I killed 4 men last night. I will carry their faces until I die. But I made that choice knowing it was necessary, knowing it was justice. Can you say the same about silencing your father's crimes? Holloway's gun hand trembled slightly. My father was a decorated general, 30 years of service, one mistake, one terrible day, and you want to erase all the good because of that 47 civilians, Captain. Women, children. That is not one mistake, that is massacre. And your brother Marcus killed my husband to hide it. How many more have to die to protect your family's honor behind Holloway movement? Wade had circled his horse around, dismounted silently, was approaching from behind. Gun in hand now, bonds cut on a sharp rock edge while Holloway's attention was fixed on Sarah. Sarah kept talking, keeping Holloway's attention. Your father's sin is not yours, Captain. But hiding it would be. You can stop this. Right now. Let the truth come out. Face it. Own it. Show your son how a real man accepts consequences. Holloway raised the gun, aimed at Sarah's head. I am sorry, Scout McKenna. Truly. But I cannot. His finger tightened on the trigger. Wade's voice cut through cold and final. Step away from the lady captain. Holloway spun, found himself facing Wade's rifle. The 2 men stared at each other across 10 feet of dusty ground. You are one of Marcus's men, was, not anymore. You will die for a stranger. No, sir, I will do this so my kids do not grow up ashamed of me. There is a difference. 2 of Holloway's soldiers appeared from the trail behind him. Weapons ready, but they looked uncertain, young. Boys wearing uniforms that suddenly felt too heavy. One of them spoke up. Captain, sir, maybe we should stand down. Federal marshals coming anyway. We keep killing, we hang for certain. Holloway's face contorted. Desperation and duty warring. We are protecting the family name. The young soldier shook his head. With respect, sir, ain't no name worth this much blood. The other soldier lowered his rifle. Then the first one did the same. Holloway stood alone, out of options, out of men willing to follow him into the darkness. He lowered his gun slowly, looked at Sarah with something like relief mixed with defeat. You win, Scout McKenna. Nobody wins here, Captain. We just choose which losses we can live with. In the distance, more horses approached. Marshal Stone and his federal posse finally arrived. The 2 deputies Sarah had sent ahead riding with them, evidence secured. It was over. They gathered in Miller's Crossing as the sun reached its peak. The whole story laid bare in Sheriff Donnelly's office. Marcus Holloway and Captain Raymond Holloway, both in custody. Wade, Carson, and Cole giving testimony, full confessions, accepting their fates, but finding something like peace in the honesty. Marshal Stone, a weathered man with keen eyes and an honest face, read through Daniel's journal. His expression darkened with each page. Miss McKenna, this is extraordinary. This evidence implicates not just the Holloway brothers, but their father, General Thomas Holloway, currently serving as military advisor to the president. Sarah sat in a chair, exhausted, bandaged, but somehow lighter than she had been in years. Will he be brought to justice, Marshal? He will. I guarantee it. You just handed me enough to hang a dozen men, including some very powerful ones. Good. That is what Daniel wanted, what he died for. Stone looked up from the journal. I will need you to testify. In Washington. Before Congress. Sarah hesitated. Looked at Tom and Sam standing by the door watching her with eyes that asked if she would leave them. Marshall, I have a ranch to rebuild, boys to raise. Those boys can wait a few weeks. This is history, Miss McKenna. This is justice on a scale that rarely happens. Your testimony could reform military oversight, prevent future massacres. Your husband started this. Will you finish it? Sarah thought about Daniel, about the choice he made, about truth costing everything. Yes, I will testify. Tom stepped forward. We will be fine, Miss McKenna. You taught us enough. We can hold things together till you get back. Sam nodded agreement. Yeah. You go make sure Daniel's story gets told proper. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. These boys, these men they were becoming. All right then, but when I come back, we have work to do. A ranch to rebuild. And maybe something more. What do you mean, ma'am? I mean, this valley needs more than cattle and fences. It needs young men who know the difference between strength and violence, who understand that justice matters more than revenge. Maybe when I come back, we start teaching that. Officially. You mean like a school? Something like that. The days that followed blurred together. Travel east by train, the landscape changing from desert to plains to the green hills of the capital. Sarah felt out of place in Washington, uncomfortable in the formal dress they insisted she wear for the hearings. But when she stood before Congress journal in hand and began to speak about Daniel's sacrifice and the truth he died protecting, something shifted. The room fell silent. Senators leaned forward. The press gallery filled with scratching pencils. She spoke for 3 hours, detailed every piece of evidence, named every name. And when she was done, when the last question had been asked and answered, there was a moment of profound silence. Then the gallery erupted, not in applause exactly, but in recognition, in the understanding that something fundamental had just changed. General Thomas Holloway was arrested that afternoon. Marcus and Raymond Holloway, formally charged with murder and conspiracy. The military began internal investigations. Reform committees were established. And in a small ceremony attended by only a handful of people, Daniel McKenna was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor for his bravery in exposing war crimes at the cost of his own life. They gave the medal to Sarah. She held it feeling its weight and thought about the man who had taught her that love could be as brave as war. The journey home took another week. Sarah rode the train west, watching the landscape reverse itself, feeling pulled by something she could not quite name. Not just duty, not just the promise she made to Tom and Sam. Something else. Something about building instead of destroying, about teaching instead of killing, about legacy. The train pulled into Miller's Crossing station on a clear afternoon. Sarah stepped off, expecting maybe Sheriff Donnelly or one of the deputies to meet her. Instead, she found a crowd, 50 people, maybe more. Tom and Sam at the front holding a banner that read, "Welcome home, Scout McKenna." Behind them, townspeople, ranchers' families. Wade Carson with his wife and 2 sons. Even Clara, the woman who had brought food during the dark days after Daniel died. Sheriff Donnelly stepped forward, hat in hand. Miss McKenna, the town council took a vote. We want to do something for you. To thank you, and to honor your husband's memory. Sarah felt overwhelmed, uncertain. Sheriff, I do not need thanks. I just want to go home. Rebuild, rest. We know. But we did it anyway. Come on, we will show you. They walked together, the whole crowd following through the town and out toward her ranch. Sarah's heart clenched, preparing to see the ruins again. The burned timbers, the ash. But when they crested the rise, what she saw stopped her dead. A house. New. Built from stone and timber, larger than before, roof shingled and solid. Fences mended. A new barn raised. And beside the house, something unexpected. A smaller building, simple but well made, with windows facing east to catch the morning light. Tom and Sam appeared at her shoulders. We rebuilt it all, Miss McKenna. Everyone helped. Donated materials, labor time. And that building, Tom grinning, that is the schoolhouse, ma'am, for teaching boys like us. The town wants you to run it. Teach them what you taught us, how to be men, good men. Sarah could not speak, could only stare. At the house, at the school, at the faces around her, hopeful and proud. Wade spoke up from the crowd. My boys need someone like you, Miss McKenna. Someone who knows the difference between strength and violence. between justice and revenge. Will you teach them? Sarah found her voice, rough with emotion. I am not a teacher. I am a soldier, a killer. No, ma'am. You are someone who chose justice when revenge would have been easier. Someone who saved lives even after taking them. Someone who stood for truth when lies would have been safer. That is exactly who these boys need. Sarah looked at Tom and Sam, at the school they had built, at the future waiting to be shaped, and she made her choice. Yes, I will teach them. All of them. Everything I know about survival and honor and standing for what matters, I will teach them. The crowd erupted in cheers. Tom and Sam hugged her, nearly knocking her over. And for the first time since Daniel died, Sarah McKenna felt something that might be joy. The sun was setting now, painting the canyon gold and red. Sarah stood on the porch of her new home, looking out at land she had fought for and kept, and was now sharing with the future. Behind her through the open door, she could hear Tom and Sam talking, planning, dreaming, about the school, about the students who would come, about lives that would be changed. And Sarah thought about Daniel, about the choice he made, about truth and justice and the weight of standing alone. She was not alone anymore, would never be alone again. She had students now, a mission, a legacy to build that was bigger than revenge and cleaner than blood. The canyon held its breath. And in that moment, Scout Sarah McKenna understood something fundamental. She had not just survived the fire, she had become the light after it, and that light would burn for a long, long time. 3 months passed like water flowing through canyon stone. Slow at first, then faster, wearing away the sharp edges of grief and leaving something smoother in its wake. Sarah McKenna stood in front of 12 boys on the first day of what would become known throughout the territory as the McKenna School for Honorable Men. The schoolhouse smelled of fresh pine and new beginnings. Rough-hewn benches faced a simple desk where Sarah had placed the Springfield rifle barrel down as both tool and symbol. Morning light slanted through the eastern windows, painting everything gold. The boys ranged from 12 to 17, farm boys mostly, sons of ranchers and shopkeepers and men who worked with their hands. They sat with varying degrees of attention, some eager, some skeptical, all uncertain what to expect from a woman who had become legend in the 3 months since that night of fire and blood. Sarah let the silence stretch. Let them study her. Let them see the scar on her cheek, the way she stood with weight balanced and hands ready, the calm that came from someone who had walked through hell and chosen to come back. Finally, she spoke, her voice carried without rising, filling the space. Welcome, this is not a regular school. I am not teaching you Latin or mathematics, though you will learn some. I am teaching you survival, in every sense of that word. One boy, maybe 14, raised his hand. Sarah nodded. Ma'am, what exactly does that mean? It means I am going to teach you how to track animals and read weather, and build shelters that will not kill you in a storm. I'm going to teach you when to fight and when to run, and how to know the difference. I am going to teach you that real strength is not about how hard you can hit, but about knowing you can hit and choosing not to. And most importantly, I'm going to teach you how to be men who stand for something worth standing for. Another hand, a younger boy, 12 maybe, with a cowlick that would not lay flat. Miss McKenna, is it true you killed 7 men? Sarah did not flinch from the question, did not soften it or hide behind platitudes. 3. I shot 3 men, 1 more died in a trap I set, and I carry the weight of every single one. Their faces are carved into my memory. I see them when I close my eyes at night. And that, boys, is exactly why I am teaching you this. Because killing is easy, living with it is hard, and preventing the need to kill in the first place. That is the hardest thing of all. The room was silent. Sarah saw understanding beginning to dawn in some of their eyes. Saw others still struggling with the idea that their teacher was someone who knew violence intimately and was not proud of it. Over here on this wall, we have 3 rules. Tom, would you read them? Tom Brewer stood from where he had been leaning against the back wall. He walked to the board where 3 sentences were written in chalk. Rule 1, respect all life, including your own. Rule 2, truth over comfort always. Rule 3, leave the world better than you found it. Sarah nodded her thanks. Tom sat back down beside Sam Fletcher. Both of them had grown in the 3 months. Taller, steadier, men in the making. Those rules will govern everything we do here. Break them and you leave. Honor them and you might just become someone worth being. The days fell into rhythm. Mornings were for practical skills. Sarah taught them to track deer through scrubland, to read the stories written in disturbed earth and broken grass. She showed them how to start fires in the rain, how to find water in seemingly dry country, how to build shelters that breathed and kept you warm without suffocating you in smoke. Tom assisted demonstrating techniques, correcting mistakes with patience he had learned from Sarah herself. His voice had deepened over the months. His hands had grown sure. He moved like someone who knew his own capability and was comfortable with it. Remember, boys, angle your kindling toward the wind. Let the air feed the fire. You work with nature, not against it. Afternoons were for defense. Not just physical combat, though Sarah taught them basic strikes and holds, and how to fall without breaking bones. More than that, she taught them awareness. How to read a room, how to spot trouble before it started, how to de-escalate with words when possible, and act with decisive force when necessary. She stood in the center of the practice yard. 12 boys circled around her. Jimmy, come at me. Try to grab my arms. The boy hesitated. Jimmy was 13, stocky, already showing the build that would make him formidable in a few years. I do not want to hurt you, ma'am. You will not. Come on, Jimmy lunged. Sarah sidestepped, used his momentum against him, and in 3 moves had him on the ground, arm locked, but not hurt. She released him immediately, helped him up. See that I did not overpower him. I redirected him, used his own force. That is the first lesson. Real strength is not about domination. It is about control of yourself first, then the situation. She ran the drill with each boy. Some learned faster than others, but all of them began to understand that what she was teaching was not about violence. It was about confidence, about knowing you could defend yourself and therefore not needing to prove it. Sam led the wilderness survival classes. At 16, he had become the best tracker among them, able to follow the sign that others missed entirely. He taught the younger boys with a quiet intensity that reminded Sarah of herself at that age. See this bent grass deer pass through here maybe 2 hours ago. See how it is springing back, but not all the way. That tells you time. And hear this scrape on the bark, buck rubbing velvet off his antlers. Late summer behavior. You learn to read these signs and the land becomes a book written just for you. Wednesday afternoons were different. Those were for ethics and philosophy. Sarah would pose scenarios, moral puzzles with no easy answers, and let the boys debate. A man steals bread to feed his starving family. Is he a criminal or a hero? The boys argued passionately. Some said criminal law is law. Others said hero family comes first. Sarah let them exhaust themselves before speaking. He is both, and neither. Life is not simple, boys. Good men make hard choices. Sometimes the right thing is also illegal. Sometimes the legal thing is immoral. What matters is that you think, that you examine your choices and own them, that you can look yourself in the mirror and accept what you see. On Friday, she taught history, not dates and battles, though those came up. She taught about the cost of choices made by men in power, about Daniel's sacrifice and what it meant, about truth and how hard it is to stand for it. She showed them copies of Daniel's journal. Let them read about the massacre at Rio Grande, about men who followed orders they knew were wrong, about one man who chose to speak up even knowing it would cost him everything. This is why truth matters, boys. One man, my husband, chose truth over his own life. That choice set things in motion that brought justice for 47 murdered people. That reformed military oversight. That proved one person can make a difference. Do not ever think you are too small to matter. One evening, as the sun painted the canyon walls orange and gold, Sarah sat on the porch of the rebuilt house. Tom and Sam joined her, each holding a cup of coffee Sarah had taught them to make strong and black. Miss McKenna, can I ask you something? Ahant's voice was tentative. Sarah nodded. Did you ever regret it, staying, fighting? Sarah was quiet for a long moment, watching the light change, thinking about the question beneath the question. Every day, Tom. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that 4 men died by my hand. I regret that their families somewhere are missing fathers or brothers or sons. But do I regret the choice to stand, to fight for what Daniel died for? No, that I do not regret. Sam spoke up. I've been thinking about the Army, Miss McKenna, about enlisting as a scout, like you were. Sarah turned to look at him, saw the determination there, the readiness. You would be good at it, Sam. You have the skills and the temperament. Just remember what I taught you. The army is a tool. Do not let it use you. Keep your conscience sharp. Question orders that do not sit right. Be brave enough to say no when no is the right answer. Yes, ma'am, I will. And Tom, what are you thinking about? Tom smiled a little sheepish. Law, ma'am. Maybe sheriff someday. Like Donnelly. Keeping people safe without always reaching for a gun first. Using my head. That is good, Tom. The territory needs more men like that. Men who understand that justice is not about winning. It is about doing right even when it costs. The school's influence spread faster than Sarah expected. Parents from neighboring ranches began sending their sons, then from towns 50 miles away. By the end of the first year, she had 25 students. By the second, she needed to expand the dormitory. Wade Carson came by on a bright afternoon, his two sons in tow. The boys were 12 and 14, nervous and excited in equal measure. Miss McKenna, I know we got history, but I am hoping you will take my boys. Teach them what you taught Tom and Sam. Teach them to be better than I was. Sarah looked at Wade, saw the changes in him. He had started a ranch nearby, small but honest, worked hard, stayed sober, became the kind of father his sons could be proud of. History is what we learn from Wade, not what we hide behind. Your boys are welcome here. Wade's voice caught. Thank you, ma'am. You gave me a second chance that night, letting me help instead of letting me die. I will not waste it. You already have not. Look at your boys. Look at yourself. That is not wasting anything. One day a rider came from the east, young man well-dressed, riding a fine horse. He dismounted in the schoolyard, looking around with interest. Sarah approached Tom and Sam, flanking her. Can I help you? The young man extended his hand. My name is James Holloway. You knew my father, Captain Raymond Holloway, and my grandfather, General Thomas Holloway. Sarah felt the past reach out, felt the weight of names and choices and consequences. I know who they are. What do you want? James met her eyes. Honest. Direct. My father is in prison. My grandfather died in disgrace. Our family name is Mudd from here to Washington. But my father, before they took him away, he told me something. He said if I wanted to be a better man than he was, than his father was, I should come find you, learn from you. So here I am. Sarah studied him. 17, earnest, carrying shame that was not his to carry, but carrying it anyway. Your father made a choice at the end, to stand for truth even though it destroyed him. That took courage. You willing to work hard, follow rules, leave your name and your pride at the door. Yes, ma'am. All of that. Then welcome to the McKenna School. James, let us see what kind of man you choose to become. James became one of her best students, worked harder than anyone as if trying to scrub away the stain of his family's past through sheer effort and honor. The other boys accepted him after some initial wariness. They had learned from Sarah that a man is judged by his choices, not his bloodline. 2 years after the school opened, Colonel Nathan Garrison visited. He rode in unannounced, older, now grayer, but still carrying himself with military bearing. Sarah met him in the yard, surprise and pleasure mixing on her face. Colonel, it has been a long time. They shook hands. Garrison looked around at the school, at the boys practicing tracking in the distance, at the neat buildings, and the sense of purpose that hung over everything. You built something here, Scout McKenna. Something remarkable. I am just teaching, sir, passing on what I learned. From me, from you, from my father, from Daniel. From every hard lesson I learned the painful way, hoping maybe these boys can learn some of it the easier way. Garrison pulled an envelope from his coat. The Army wants to establish an official training program based on your methods. They want you to advise. Good pay, recognition, a chance to influence thousands of soldiers instead of dozens of students. Sarah shook her head before he finished. No, sir, my place is here. These boys need someone who will teach them to be men first and soldiers maybe never. The Army trains killers. I am training something different. What if I told you that you could do both? Come to Fort Union once a month, review their scout training program, make recommendations. Keep your school but expand your influence. Sarah considered, looked at Tom and Sam, now 18 and 17, capable of running things in her absence. Once a month, no more. And I do not compromise what I teach here. I do not water it down to make the Army comfortable. Agreed. The Army needs more voices like yours, Sarah. Ones that question, that demand more than blind obedience. Then I will do it. For Daniel. He believed in changing systems from inside. Garrison smiled. He would be proud of what you built here. I hope so, Colonel. God, I hope so. The seasons turned. Students graduated. Tom Brewer left to become a deputy in Santa Fe, carrying everything Sarah had taught him. He wrote letters describing cases he solved without violence, de-escalations that worked justice served without bloodshed. Sam Fletcher enlisted in the Army as a scout just as he planned. His commanding officer wrote to Sarah 6 months later, praising Sam's skills and integrity. Said he was the best tracker they had, and more than that, he taught the other scouts to think, not just follow orders blindly. Sarah kept their letters pinned to the wall of the schoolhouse. Proof that what she was teaching mattered, that it lasted beyond these canyon walls. Students came and went. Each one took something away. Some became lawmen. Others ranchers or traders or teachers themselves. But all of them carried the 3 rules. Respect all life. Truth over comfort. Leave the world better than you found it. 5 years after that first night of fire, Sarah stood in the practice yard watching a new class of boys learn to track. She was 45 now, threads of gray in her dark hair. The scar on her cheek had faded but never disappeared. She wore it without shame. A reminder, a teacher in itself. A young woman approached, maybe 25. Nervous but determined. Miss McKenna. Sarah turned. Yes, my name is Elizabeth Garrett. I am a teacher in Miller's Crossing. I was wondering, do you only teach boys? Sarah blinked. The question had never occurred to her. I suppose I never thought about it. Why? Because I have a group of girls who want to learn what you teach. Self-defense, tracking, how to survive, how to stand up for themselves. And I cannot teach them. But you could. Sarah felt something shift, an expansion of possibilities she had not seen coming. Bring them next week. Saturday mornings. We will try it and see. Elizabeth's face lit up. Thank you, Miss McKenna. You have no idea what this means. But Sarah thought maybe she did. Because legacy was not just about the students you expected. It was about the ones who surprised you, who showed you that what you built could grow in directions you never imagined. The years continued to pass. The school became an institution. Other teachers joined, men and women, both teaching subjects Sarah could not, mathematics and literature and science. But the core remained. Sarah's classes in survival and ethics, in the hard truths about violence and choice. She was 50 when a telegram arrived from Washington. Brief, direct, Colonel Garrison passed. Funeral Tuesday. Would be honored if you attended. Sarah made the journey east. Stood at the graveside with other old soldiers, people who had served with Garrison in the war. The priest spoke of duty and honor and sacrifice. All true, all inadequate. When it was Sarah's turn to speak, she kept it simple. Colonel Garrison taught me that real strength is not about domination. It is about protection. He taught me that following orders is not enough. You have to question. You have to think. And when the orders are wrong, you have to have the courage to say so. He taught me what it means to be a soldier. But more than that, he taught me what it means to be human. I carry those lessons still, and I pass them on. That is his real legacy, not the medals or the battles, but the people he shaped. The ones who went out and made the world a little bit better because he believed they could. She placed a single wildflower on the casket. New Mexico sage. Carried 3,000 miles to honor a man who had seen past her gender and youth and given her a chance to become who she was meant to be. The train ride home gave her time to think about mortality, about legacy, about what remained when the body failed and only the influence lasted. She was not young anymore, would not live forever. But what she built, the school, the students, the ripples, spreading out from this one choice to stand and fight and then teach, that would outlast her. That would endure. It was enough. More than enough. Sarah returned to the school on a clear autumn day. The canyon blazed with color. Aspens turned gold against the red rock. Tom was visiting now, a sheriff in his own right. Sam was on leave from the Army wearing sergeant stripes in the quiet confidence of someone who had found his place. They sat together on the porch as evening fell. Three people bound by fire and choice in the years between. Tom spoke first. Miss McKenna, I have been thinking, I have got a son now, 2 years old, and I want him to learn from you. When he is old enough. Is that strange? Sarah smiled. Not strange at all, Tom. Bring him when he is ready. I will teach him just like I taught you. Sam added his voice. I am getting married next month, girl from Santa Fe. We are talking about maybe moving back here when my service is up. Starting a ranch, raising kids. And when we do this school, that is the first place I am bringing them. Sarah felt tears sting her eyes, not sadness, gratitude, for these boys who became men, for the chance to shape their path, for the gift of knowing that what she taught would pass to the next generation through them. That is what this is all about, boys, not just teaching you, but teaching you so you can teach others. Every one of you who graduates carries these lessons forward, becomes a teacher yourself even if you never stand in front of a classroom. You teach your children, your neighbors, anyone who will listen. That is how we change the world, one person at a time, one choice at a time. They sat in comfortable silence as stars emerged. The canyon settled into night, and Sarah McKenna, widow and soldier and teacher, felt something very close to peace. She was 65 when she stood in front of her last class, not because she was dying, but because she was passing the torch. Tom and Sam would run the school now along with others she had trained, the next generation of teachers. Her hair was silver, her hands showed the wear of years. But her eyes were still sharp, still carrying the same quiet steel they always had. She looked at the faces before her, 20 boys and girls this time, ages 12 to 17, all of them watching her with the respect earned through years of students returning and telling stories about the woman who taught them to be more than they thought possible. I am not going anywhere, she told them. I will still be here, still teaching sometimes. But these other teachers, they are ready now, and you need fresh voices, new perspectives. What I taught them, they will teach you, and add their own wisdom to it. That is how knowledge grows, how legacy builds. A girl in the front row raised her hand. 14, determined looking. Miss McKenna, my pa says you are a legend, that they will tell stories about you for 100 years. Is that true? Sarah smiled. I do not know about legends, child. I only know I made choices. Some good, some necessary, some I regret, but all of them taught me something, and I tried to pass those lessons on. If that makes me anything, it makes me a teacher. That is all I've ever wanted to be. Not a legend, just someone who helped others find their way. But you killed men. You stood alone against 7 riders. You went to Washington and brought down a general. That sounds like legend to me, Singh. Maybe, but you know what, I am more proud of Tom Brewer. Sheriff now. Solved 16 disputes last year without a single shot fired. Sam Fletcher. Army Sergeant. Trained scouts to think, not just obey. James Holloway. Runs a ranch that treats its workers fair and pays honest wages despite carrying a name that should have destroyed him. Those are my real accomplishments. Not the men I killed, but the lives I helped build. The class was silent, taking it in. Understanding, perhaps, that Sarah McKenna's greatest victory was not that night of fire and blood. It was this room, these students, this legacy that would outlive her by generations. She taught that last official class with everything she had, poured into it all the wisdom of 70 years lived hard and honest. And when it was done, when the students filed out and she was alone in the schoolhouse, she allowed herself a moment of reflection. Daniel's photograph hung on the wall, young, smiling, frozen in a moment before the world took him. Sarah looked at it for a long time. I did it, Daniel. I stood for truth like you did, but I also built something that will last. I hope you would be proud. She could almost hear his answer, could almost feel his hand on her shoulder. Of course I am proud, Sarah. You took the hardest thing, the worst night, and turned it into light. That is all anyone can do. Take the darkness and make something bright from it. Sarah closed the schoolhouse door, walked out into the evening. The canyon was gold and purple in the fading light. Beautiful, eternal, indifferent to human struggle and triumph both. But not empty, never empty. Because every student who passed through these walls carried a piece of this place with them, carried Sarah's lessons and Daniel's sacrifice, and the truth that one person standing for something real could change the world. Tom and Sam were waiting by the house, their families with them now, children running in the yard, life continuing, growing, becoming. Sarah joined them, sat on the porch she had rebuilt, watched the next generation play and laugh and learn simply by being in this place where truth mattered and justice was worth fighting for. You did good, Miss McKenna, Sam's voice. Quiet, certain. We all did good, Sam. All of us. Together. The sun set, stars emerged, the canyon held its peace, and Sarah McKenna, scout and widow and teacher, allowed herself to rest. Not in death, but in completion. In knowing that the work would continue without her, that the legacy was secure. She had been forged in fire, had walked through blood and ash, had lost everything and built something better from the ruins. And in the end, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. The canyon remembered. The students remembered. And somewhere, maybe Daniel was smiling. The night deepened. The stars wheeled overhead in their ancient patterns. And in a small schoolhouse in Red Canyon, New Mexico, 3 rules remained written on the wall, waiting for the next student to read them and carry them forward. Respect all life, including your own. Truth over comfort always. Leave the world better than you found it. Simple words, profound truths. Sarah McKenna's gift to the future. And the future accepted it gladly.